Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group, and with me as always is Chip Januszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
Doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic.
Spring is starting to spring here, so
It
looking
is,
for weather.
spring in New England is always a strange thing. So far in a week's time we've had, 20 degrees, 60 degrees. Now we've got very warm temperatures and a cold front backing it up. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the March Lion Lamb syndrome. There you go.
Exactly. So, Chip, why don't you introduce our special guests this week?
Yeah, today we have a very special guest, the family Hayden. I met Bill Hayden a few years ago, and his son Christian actually started a business called Levo International a few years ago. And the story of how they started the company, what they're doing, who they're doing it for, is just fascinating. So, folks, when they give your contact information out, I want you to help spread the word about it. But Christian, why don't you tell us exactly how you got from point A to point B, Northwest Catholic High School, to running this wonderful worldwide organization that you got going?
Yeah, sure. So, and thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it. So Levo started with really my Eagle Scout project. I was looking for a community project. So you have to reach the highest rank in Boy Scouts, you have to do an Eagle Scout project, which is, usually a community project. So building something for your local town or church or something like that. And so I was looking for a project that would be impactful and ideally international. And so I was looking for a cool project and stumbled upon simplified hydroponics. The guy who ran my Boy Scout troop had it in his backyard, and he had done it in the Dominican Republic. And so he taught me about it. He gave me some books, and I decided that my Eagle Scout project was gonna be a demonstration hydroponic greenhouse in Haiti. And so we drafted up the plans, got an organization that was going to support us in Haiti, was going to host the project. Boy Scouts ended up turning down the proposal. Understandably, didn't want to send a 16-year-old going down to Haiti. And so instead, the project became from my local high school, building a demonstration greenhouse. And then as an extension of that project, going down with my father and my brother on a trip to Haiti and building that demonstration greenhouse. When we were down there, we realized kind of the extreme need that existed, particularly in Haiti, in rural Haiti where we were working, but also the potential of simplified hydroponics, which is essentially hydroponics is farming without soil. It's a super efficient way to grow. It saves 90% of the water of traditional agriculture while increasing the yield and saving the space. And so in an area where you have to walk a far distance for your water and the soil quality is really poor, Haitian families and farmers could reap a lot of benefits from hydroponics. And so the three of us, my father and my brother, we really started from that initial project planning out how could we take this and provide a simple, affordable, and locally sourced as much as we can version of this system in Haiti. And so that's kind of where Levo was born, was this small scale, super simple approach to hydroponics. And then we built an organization that was really built around the foundations of partnership with local organizations who have been essential to the success of the organization. So whether you're talking about Haiti or here in the United States, you're talking about church groups, you're talking about volunteers, you're talking about organizations. We've built a really impressive, in a short period of time, network of partnerships, both in Haiti and the US, to support that work. But then we also focused on that individual family and maximizing empowerment for the family and the household, rather than kind of that top-down approach. We built a bottom-up approach. And so from that initial project, we continue to break the system down even simpler and smaller, designed that family unit called the Babylon system, and the BOCIT system came later. And then when the pandemic began, we really switched gears. And not switch gears, I should say. We ramped up our domestic side of things when we saw the the needs that existed here domestically in Connecticut in particular, with the rising food insecurity. And so we began launching programs here in the US as well. So it's been about 6 years. We're going on this year is the 6th year that we've been in operation since that initial first project. And it's grown a lot since that initial family-based project. And so my brother went down for 2 months and worked to establish the protocols. He's a botanist at the University of Ohio, or the Ohio State University, I should say. And my father, he was an experienced nonprofit and business executive, and so he's helped guide the organization strategically and organizationally. While I would do things like speaking for the organization, but also building out the designs and expanding. But from that initial, the three of us, we have had countless volunteers. We're talking about young and old people supporting the organization in various capacities. We still are a majority volunteer-driven organization, and so those volunteers have been critical to the growth of the organization, as well as our partners who have been incredible. So that's Levo.
That's fantastic. How, when you were looking for a project for your Eagle Scout badge, what made you think of hydroponics? What brought that to your attention?
So it was really just luck. I mean, so this was 6 years ago. And it was hydroponics was even less of an industry, an agricultural industry then than it is today. It's gotten increasingly popular. Vertical farming is kind of something that a lot of people know about. But the guy, he had been doing this. There was a big push, I think, in the 80s. Like Epcot, for example, was one of the first major commercial hydroponic operations in Disney. And so he had learned from a bunch of Dominican friars in the Dominican Republic how to use this hydroponic system. And he had it just in his backyard, in like a hoop house in his backyard. And so he walked me through it one day, my junior year of high school, early in the year, like in the summer before junior year. And he was explaining, how the systems worked and the amount of production and the super efficiency of it, but also the simplicity of it. And, from that day, I was like, oh my goodness, why is this not everywhere? Right? Because you're all, I was constantly hearing about water issues and soil issues all around the world. And this didn't seem like a complicated thing. And PVC piping is available everywhere, right? Almost every country on the planet has plumbing of some sort, plumbing supplies. And so, I saw this as a huge opportunity that was really being underutilized. And so, then Haiti was really just, he learned it in the Dominican Republic, and I knew that Haiti had a greater level of poverty and food insecurity, and so we chose Haiti versus the DR. But that's really, it was all kind of lucky instances that led to it.
That's really fantastic. I'm reminded, you keep saying it's simplified, and yes. I'm assuming at least on some level that's so the folks on the ground can keep everything running.
Yeah.
I do remember, I wish I could remember the organization, but we'd spoken to them a number of years ago. This was a group that had brought medical equipment to, places like Haiti, Dominican Republic, Sub-Saharan Africa, only they found that they had a hard time keeping the equipment running because they could not train people to make the repairs necessary. What they did find was that most of these areas, people were very familiar with cars. And so they created new medical equipment based on car parts because they knew the people could fix those.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. Christian, one of the things that Christian didn't really emphasize is how much his approach to innovation has been sort of the starting point for so much of the work we did. And one of the things that's interesting about that, and I always will talk about the fact that, this is a 15, 16-year-old high school student, right? So one of the things that we should recognize is that to make things happen, you don't have to have a particular degree or a set of experiences. You have to have first and foremost a commitment to making that impact, whatever that impact is. But one of the things that he was able to do, not being an engineer, not being a farmer, not having any exposure to that, one of the things he looked at was what's essential here, right? And then the design. When we say simplified, if you look at commercial hydroponics, it is more complex. There's a lot of control of all the various elements of the all the inputs, and so what Christian did in the initial design was to strip out anything that wasn't absolutely essential. And sometimes we forget about that when we think about innovation, think about creativity. We always think about we have to do something more complex, we have to do something more challenging. And in some cases, the innovation that's most powerful is the simplest, right? Stripping away the things that are not essential and only focusing on the essential. And that then can really leverage the local talent and the individual. The individual doesn't need a great deal of training from us. They're using their own experience.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, simplification and scarcity have long been a cornerstone of innovation. I know now people think about it, in technology, but think about, some of the biggest innovation we've had in our country go back to the NASA Apollo launches. Sure, the rockets were very technical, everything was, very complicated, but go to Apollo 13 and you had to save the astronauts' lives with whatever they had on board, and that's what pushed that innovation. So I think it was actually a big advantage for Christian not having that engineering background, not having the farming background, because he wasn't there going, well, we've always done it this way, so we can't do something different. He was able to see what was essential and really go forward with that.
No, they've come
Yeah,
up.
exactly.
Go ahead, Bill.
No, I was just saying that exactly that stripping away the things that are complicated to see the essence of things is something that it's a natural skill for a number of people. But I think I've found that young people have a tendency to be able to sort of get that general idea first and not make excuses to try to complicate it.
Yeah, I think obviously the older we get, the more set in our ways we are as far as that goes. But what you have done, Kristen, is simplify for people. But you're also out there educating people as to what's going on. You're getting communities involved in doing these things themselves. You're launching a CSA in Hartford coming up in a month or two. So tell us about everything that you got going on around here, as far as the different sites that you're doing things right now, what's already up, what's coming, and so on and so forth, and how we can help you out, most importantly.
And for those of our listeners that are not familiar, can you define what a CSA is?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Levo is we're a 501c3 corporation, which means that we're a nonprofit organization. But that said, what we think of that as a tax status, not a business model. And so what we've been working on for the last 6 years is to build an organization that's really a social enterprise, right? Where we can create sustainable development opportunities, but also sustainable economic models and sustainable approaches to community development and community strengthening. And so we look at that as, okay, we have these great tools, in particular hydroponic technology, and we have great partnerships and networks that we've built. And so what we've been doing for the last 2 years, particularly here in the States, is build up a great network of community partners, right? So that could be hospitals, that could be food pantries, churches, organizations, and businesses. And so we have a pretty densely networked, particularly in the city of Hartford, partnership network. And so what we're launching this year, combining that simplified hydroponics and that high efficiency but low cost and low work components, to create a network of urban growers in Hartford. A CSA it's called community supported agriculture. And so basically the idea is that you're buying in, you're taking on some of the risk for a local farm. And so usually you buy a CSA share, and then you say you pay $500 up front, and then throughout the season you come each week and you pick up your produce from the farm. And so the idea